welcome to Sci-AI Podcast. In the podcast series, we are going to introduce a lot of guests from various backgrounds, wherein they will talk about their passion in the field of science and AI. And today, it is my utmost pleasure to invite Mr. Marco Rigamonti from Italy. He's a great AI researcher. I've been a great fan. I've followed him on LinkedIn and on other places. I've also tried to dig into some of his research and really liked it, and thought that it'll be a great idea to introduce him to everybody in the world. So if you're an AI passionate person and love to hear about AI, we have a special guest for you today. Marco has done his Ph.D. from one of the great universities in Italy, but he has also done about 6 months from NASA in Mountain View, California. He will shed some more light on this and will share his experiences. How did that go? He has written a couple of papers there and did great amount of research. So thank you, Marco, for joining us. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to us?
Thank you, Vivek. Thank you very much for your introduction. And it's a pleasure for me to be here. And you said almost everything. I did a Ph.D. in nuclear engineering between Italy and the NASA Research Center in California. And I was working basically on a predictive system for predictive maintenance of industrial system and to aiming at identifying the failure time of industrial system for energy. And basically my research was focused on this field. It was a very practical field in AI, not much a theoretical one.
Right.
Because I'm an engineer, of course.
Yeah.
And then after that, I worked in a spin-off of my university here in Italy, dealing with one of the most of the energy companies here in Italy, like Enel and General Electric, in order to help them to develop system for monitoring and predicting the failure of their system. Exactly.
Okay. That's really awesome. So I'm glad that, I can discuss some of these AI topics with you. Can you also share some light about the few papers that you've done at NASA and share your experience, how it happened? And
Yeah, well, while I was there, we tried to develop a system for the prediction of a fleet of turbofan engines.
Okay.
And basically, it was based on an ensemble of neural network trained on the gradation data of this fleet. And the goal was to being able to predict the remaining life of each engine based on the training data. And we developed this approach based on a local ensemble, which with several neural networks, and each neural network was predicting better the life of certain engines. And this was the rationale behind the local ensemble approach. So we figure out the most similar behaving engine to those which are under study, and select the better performing model on those engines to predict the life of the objective.
Right.
And basically this approach improved a lot the performance with respect to a single one neural network trained on all the data set.
Right.
And we've been also able to develop a recurrent neural network approach for estimating the uncertainty of the prediction. And we proved this approach based on the recurrent network, which was able to focus not only on the current state, but also on the previous life of the engine. So following the trajectory of the degradation, was able to predict the different uncertainty based on the life. And this was one of the most interesting outcome of the research. And we published a conference paper on this and an international journal paper, which has been really appreciated, and it was my honor to cooperate with scientists at NASA.
Incredible.
It's been an amazing experience, and I will always carry it in my heart.
That's incredible. So congratulations to you. And
thank you very much.
Yeah, so I think it's the right time now to ask you, some of the questions that I have regarding AI. What is your opinion on current AI research? I mean, do you think AI is going to sort of infiltrate our lives in the next decade or so? And which sectors of our lives, for example, healthcare or pharma or defense or, cybersecurity, or which parts of our day-to-day lives can it actually impact us in the next decade or so? And do we need to be worried about it?
Yeah, well, I think the current AI research is really exciting because I've seen that the community is trying to develop models which aim at replicating the way we reason and the way we learn. And it's really connected with neurobiological science because definitely our brain is basically a biological computer.
True.
And I think that once we will be able to understand how the brain really functions, it will be much easier to not to replicate it, but to mimic it, to emulate it. I'm not sure we will be able to replicate the real brain functioning, but I'm pretty sure we will be able to mimic it.
Because we have like millions of neurons in our head, right, in our brain. How would you be able to mimic that? And, how would an artificial machine can sort of mimic or replicate it
well, how actually I don't know. It's a top level question for top level scientists.
Yes.
But I've read a couple of things, and one way that seemed very interesting to me was based on this symbolic approach, which was based on these neurological studies about how kids create images in their mind and then compose them in order to be able to reason and to learn just with a couple of trials. For example, a kid doesn't need to touch the oven twice to know that it's hot and it's harmful. It's just once.
Right.
And in this moment, it's artificial intelligence. It's not at this level.
No.
And this seemed to me very interesting. Then I read an interview of Hinton, which of course knows what he speaks about.
Yes.
And he said that this approach was interesting, but he didn't think it was the right one because he was talking about the brain and not the neural network. He was talking about the brain, that it's very sparsely connected and a lot of neurons that excite each other in several areas.
Right.
And right now, maybe we don't have the computational power to reproduce that. And also we don't have the right model. But he was thinking that the best way to try to mimic the brain was a deep, sparsely connected, huge neural network functioning exacting like the brain. But it was much more difficult to try to understand this approach than the other one. Maybe that's why the other one seemed interesting to me.
Correct.
But I think we will reach that.
Yes.
I don't know when, but it's not if, it's basically when.
Right. Right. It's a when question. It's not an if question, right?
Yeah, of course. For the other point, the sectors that I think we will be more impacted since it's AI, it's already infiltrating our lives. The standard part of AI, it's already here and it's already functioning. It's very low skilled. I mean, it's not low skilled. It can be applied very well to very specific sector, and it's not, of course, general, but you can find it everywhere in cars, in the machines, also in the kitchen, on social media, wherever.
Yes.
Everything, natural language processing. Right. This huge amount of information is being processed by algorithms, and they're pretty able to, on average, to understand and to extract important information.
Correct.
And however, actually, every sector of our life can be infiltrated by AI, more or less.
Wow.
So I would like to say that I don't like it, for example, in the defense or in the military sector, because it's dangerous. And I think in a sector like that, to give all the decision making to the machine
is,
on average, it can also work. on average. But the problem is that you cannot reason on average in this kind of things. You're not predicting the life of a fleet of engines that on average you have to be right, because in the end your goal is reached and you have maximized the life and minimized the costs.
Correct.
Here we're talking about lives, and so also humans don't make always the right decision about that, but at least they can be accountable somehow, and the machines cannot. And this is one of the sectors that worry me, and I think it should be not allowed.
True.
In the defense, in the military, also a lot of scientists have signed, I don't know how to say, a request of not using AI or to regulate AI in this sector. However, the most interesting sector, of course, is healthcare.
Yes.
And healthcare and pharmaceutical, and also in the management of complex systems like the electric grid, because of the effects it can have on the world, on the environment. I think these are the most interesting part. From the hacker point of view, for example, you can bring knowledge everywhere, because, for example, imagine that you are, I don't know, in somewhere where there are no hospitals with, and there is a lack of physicians using these tools. You can evaluate exams and receiving the response, and based on that, the professionals, the nurses can start to cure the person.
Yes.
The other things was also a Google model. I think, if I'm right, it's called AlphaFold.
AlphaFold, yes.
If I remember, and it was able to select candidates among proteins to develop different medicine, and doing this in incredibly less time than it's done right now. For example, because right now the scientists have to make hypotheses on how to create the protein, how test it, how to react, how the protein reacts, and with this model, the team was able to propose much more candidates and to evaluate them faster, reaching the goals of identifying the best one in much less time than the current approach, basically. And this, just thinking about maybe it's not the right comparison, but for example, identifying the best cure for coronavirus, you could have used something like that. Maybe in 10 years we will be able to use it and to identify the candidate vaccine in 1/10 of the time. I don't know, but for sure, this is one of the most interesting area. And in some area like the image diagnostic, it's already above the average, far more above the average. I remember I attended a seminary in Politecnico of Milano.
Yeah, your university, right? Where you did.
Yeah, in my university. But back in 2014, there was this guy from this AI company working also with healthcare, suggesting us and telling us, if you know someone who is going to start his academic path in radiology, for example, tell him to change, because right now in 2014, the performance are above the 85th percentile. Wow. Something like that. Yeah. So only the top physicians are still above the machine. Right. And, it's been 7 years from that moment, and it's even better right now. So there are fields where it's already of paramount importance to resort to AI, and it will, as I was saying before, using these models can free the top specialists for more complex tasks with more added value where you require them. And for example, imagine, the specialized nurse are able to make a diagnosis on an X-ray photo, but they're not allowed right now. They need a physician. Yeah. If they resort to this kind of models, it's the model that takes the responsibility of the diagnosis. They can confirm it. If the case is complex, they go to the physician. Otherwise, they can start faster to cure the illness or something like that. So, and also the effect is to improve the life quality of people. So it has to be my favorite field.
Yes.
And the other sector I was mentioning before, the management of complex system like the electric grid, is because, and this is one of the things that made me very interested in the AI field.
Yeah.
I read about the application of reinforcement learning by Google after studying the development of AlphaGo and all the other models that they developed for playing Atari, which are crazy.
That was crazy.
It's crazy.
The way they defeated Gary Kasparov and then later the champion in Japan or
in Go.
In Go, yes,
in
exactly.
China.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
I also I've seen the documentary.
I have seen that.
Very interesting.
That was like, because that guy could not believe that he has lost because he was one of the best in the world. And
I know.
Yeah,
it didn't go well for him for the next couple of years, because I think it was a little depressed. But I mean, that was a future. And they're still easy. They've done also a complex. They defeated the best team in the world. I don't remember the name of the game. The best team of World of Warcraft is correct.
Okay, that I don't know.
Which is a much more complex game. The different models were acting together and not competing because they were on the same team. So they were. Right. I don't get the word right now, but you understand. They were cooperating against the best team in the world, and the AI defeated the best team in a very much more complex game, and it was really crazy. But this is crazy from the research point of view. If you know the topic, it's crazy from that point of view.
Right.
Then they applied this algorithm to the management system, to the management of the cooling system of their data center.
Right.
And from one day to another, they cut 40% of electricity consumption.
40%?
40%, which was also millions of dollars, but also a lot of energy.
Of course.
In just one day.
Yes.
Just with a different management system.
Amazing.
And I was really amazed by this result, and I thought that this can be how we can approach the current problem of climate change. Try to exploit what we have without completely change the electricity production that we have to.
Yes.
We have to do that because there's no more time. But at least we can rely on some other tool to help us to reach our goals.
Right.
And I mean, to reach that goal, of course, you need the research team of Google, and you also need a lot of data about your data center, because you have to predict the loads. You need, for example, thermal models of the different machines based on the functioning. So you have to develop the digital twins of everything. Inside your facility, and to do that you have to have collected the data before, because otherwise you can't do that. So it's not applicable right now to different system, but if we start to collect the data where we need that, maybe we will be able to do something like that
in the near future.
Yeah. Of course, I didn't find many details on this application because it was not a video game; it was a real factory. So there was only the result, and it was 40%, which is still crazy.
Just amazing. Yeah. Great. Then let's move on to one more topic that I wanted to ask you is, like, what is your opinion on AI when it comes to when will it completely mature? Like, as it is talked about, what I'm trying to get onto is actually artificial general intelligence. So basically, I read about it a lot. I've seen a lot of podcasts and followed this topic a lot for the last 2 or 3 years. And what it is being said is that it could be our last invention, because post that, humans do not need to invent anything because it's going to be so much fast. And the general intelligence will have so much data to itself that it can calculate everything, in no time. So defeating any human intelligence. And so, what is your opinion about AGI? And then I will have a follow-up question on AGI as well. Yeah.
Well, my opinion about AGI is that is really fascinating as a concept.
Does it scare you? Does it scare you as an AI researcher?
Not so much. People scares me more. I'm pretty sure of that.
Okay, that's a good point.
Of course, a bad built AGI, it scares me.
Okay.
Because, of course, it depends on which are the constraints that you put on that, which are the safety measure.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we will be able to reach, I don't know, AGI in the pure sense of the term, but we will be able to reach something like that. And of course, it will be better than any human intelligence because of the computational power, the data. Once we will be able to mimic our brain processes, of course, the artificial intelligence will beat us.
Right.
But there are a couple of things that needs to be said about that. So even if it's able to think better than us,
Right.
it has to be enabled to act at the physical level.
So autonomously.
Because if it has no control on the physical world, it can't do anything.
Right.
Basically.
So you're saying when it becomes autonomous, then it becomes dangerous.
Yeah. When it becomes something like in Terminator, which controls. And the other thing is that it needs power to work.
Yes.
And if you, for example, this is very crazy stuff, but if you put a safety measure, which is just take out the electricity, the AGI, it's done. Unless it does not control, I don't know, a fleet of robots that are able to create an autonomous power plant which cannot be shut off by humans, but otherwise it needs electricity.
Right.
So it's how we implement that scares me, not just the AGI. On the other side, I don't think it will be the last thing that we have to invent, because when future needs will arise, it's not sure that they affect us in the same way as the previous one. Right. So since the AGI has been learning on the past, not on the future,
right?
Maybe it won't be able to intercept our new needs as we do, and so it won't be able to invent what we need. Maybe it will be able to advance the research in specific areas where, okay, this is how it functions. We have this problem. We need to find a solution. For example, in the protein,
right,
in the protein candidates.
Right.
But I don't know what's going to happen in the world. Maybe, I don't know, if something new comes out. Who knows? Yes. I think we are still more general, basically. Okay. Especially in the speculation about what the future will bring.
Yeah.
But still, I'm not sure that I think that when we will really have an AGI, it will give us so much stuff to think about its functioning. We will need to understand what happens inside, because the other real great problem that I think about is that basically the machine is trained to reach one goal, several goals, but we define the goals, not the machine.
Right.
The problem is that we don't know how the machine reached that goals.
Yeah. Okay.
And an example of that is, for example, in AlphaGo. That several masters of the game said that the machine was using some open moves that have never been done in the history of the game.
Wow. So innovating by itself.
It invented new moves with a longer horizon, because it had the possibility to perform millions of simulations. And no master have never thought about this move, so invented other approaches to reach the final goal.
Yes.
And if we don't control these approaches in the real life to reach our goals, I mean, the most basic example of that is to preserve life on Earth, and humans are the problem. It's the most basic.
Correct.
If you don't put the boundaries, and this is it's an easy one, but we don't know what such a powerful tool can take into account to on the long term to reach its goal.
True.
And this is the very problematic part. If we don't control that, we can never completely rely on an AGI, because its actions might be completely unexpected for us. And they might bring several problems
in the future. Yep.
Yeah. And this is still a problem of how we implement that. And there is another thing to say is that we will never be able to evaluate all the possible approaches. So I don't think we will be able to really build a safe AGI,
You're right, because for example, like nuclear power. I mean, nuclear power.
That's what I was talking about.
Weapons wasn't invented, when they were invented, like guns and bombs were not invented for killing people or for waging wars, but it eventually turned out to be like that. So you're right. It's the humans who can do more damage by creating an AGI like that that can hurt other humans. Yeah.
And also you are talking about nuclear power plants, since I'm a nuclear engineer.
Yes.
Even if you have a risk level of 10-7, there is always something unexpected that happens.
Wow.
The problem is that it can happen one time, and you talk about that for 10 years or for 30 years.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just one failure over a wide amount of nuclear power plants all over the world, but you still talk of that. Chernobyl was
an example, yeah.
Yeah, it was 35 years ago, and we still talk about that.
It's still inhabitable, Chernobyl, and you're right. Oh my God. Good.
And the problem is you can never evaluate all the possible options. There's too much.
Yes, so many use cases, so many scenarios where only a single thing can break, and it can go in any place. So great.
And you cannot use a trial and error approach on everything.
Exactly. It has to be a solid, due diligently done research and establishment. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Great. Let's move to the next that I have let's move to the business part or the commercial part of it, which is, in your opinion, there are so many companies like in Silicon Valley and in Europe and everywhere coming up in the field of AI. So do you think that companies and startups adopting AI in their operations and imbibing it in their business models, do you think it'll help, accelerate the commercial part of businesses when adopting AI? And do founders really, my follow-up question on that is, do founders and startup owners do actually know, like we just discussed, do they know each and every scenario of when they're building something related to AI? Do they know the threats, or do they know the other side of the coin? Have they done their due diligence? And if they haven't, what cost can the future humans, like 50 years from now, because of their companies, will have to pay?
Well, this is a difficult question.
Everything in future.
Yeah, well, as far as I know, there has been very much hype about AI in companies and startups from a commercial point of view. Based on my experience, I mean, the application of AI in large companies, which are not tech AI company, of course, but they're trying to implement AI models to improve the internal operation, like document readings and customer evaluation, and to perform a very specific task at a larger volume, at a larger scale, faster and cheaper, basically. This is the main approach. In fact, one of the most applied AI model in the near past was virtual assistant, basically.
With
chatbot.
Yes, chatbot. Yeah.
Because it's much cheaper than having people answering the phone.
Right. Exactly.
Basically, but from the point of view of the complexity of the models and of what they do, it's the basic model. You don't even need AI to perform some of these. I'm not talking about complex virtual assistant like Siri, Alexa, stuff like that. They, of course, they need AI because they understand almost everything. They understand almost everything we say. They don't really understand what we say, but they're able to classify what we say to extract the information. But I think that the business part, it's not really aware of how AI works, what are the capabilities, and to define the road to really exploit the potentiality of AI. Because one of the things that I've heard the most in my working experience is, you take the data, you feed the data to the model and it learns.
Right.
Well, it's not actually like that. I mean, you need to teach the model properly. You just don't give the data and we're not wizards.
Yeah.
I mean,
not everybody.
It's not like that. So they are on average, of course, and for my experience, some of them try to understand the reasoning behind that, and it's not required to know the technicalities.
Yeah.
It's just required to understand the functioning behind the models,
right,
and what are the potentiality. And I've met a couple of business managers able to do that, but they're not the majority of them. Of course, the Silicon Valley is completely different environment. I mean, most of them knows perfectly what they do, and because it's where everything starts. I mean, in this field, it's Silicon Valley, basically in China.
Yes, exactly.
But Silicon Valley has a better public relation.
Yes. And I have actually lived in San Francisco for some time, around 2012, when I was in the States. And I have actually lived in a big dorm where so many startup founders were working, and I could see them. I mean, they are so young, potentially maybe 17 or 18 sometimes. And then, I mean, they are just working all day, all night. There's nothing wrong in doing it. I myself was an entrepreneur and I promoted. The only fear is, do you know what you're building? I mean, it can be said about everything for humans. When our forefathers were building guns, we could have asked the same question. Do you know why you're building it? And if you know, then do you know that other people can take advantage of it? So how would you safeguard it? So, I mean, please complete your thought about it.
No, it's a cultural thing. I mean, they're used to this approach. For example, here in Italy, is completely different. It's much harder to be an entrepreneur here. Okay. It's harder than other Europe countries, not only than Silicon Valley. And it's a very, very long, long and complex
process.
No, it's not just the process. There are a couple of things, the society. No.
Okay.
We need another podcast for this. It's not about that.
That's true. That's a follow-up podcast.
Yeah, of course. And I think that most of the startups that are embedding AI tools into their business model, some of them are doing it for marketing, basically.
Right.
Because even if you don't need it, it's better to speak to the investors and tell them that you have the latest technology. In the end, the important thing is that it works.
Yes.
For example, I understand. I mean, you have a classic model which performs better than an AI model, but when you are looking for fundings, it doesn't matter. I mean, if there is hype, there is hype.
Right.
So they were selling AI where there was not. I remember these startups won, I don't remember a prize like the best chatbot models replying. I don't remember the name, but in the end I discovered that there were no chatbot and there were people answering.
The live chat is the biggest one. Do you remember?
I don't remember. I completely forgot the name, but I'm sure that they won a lot of prizes, but it was not the model answering. There were like 200 people answering to the request. So they seemed normal people because they were.
Yep.
So, and this is one of the most funny things
Right.
I've heard.
Right.
But however, when you use these tools in a business company, in the end, what you're interested in is the economic result.
True.
So, of course, even if your approach makes something wrong to a small amount of people, you, from the economic point of view, you don't care because your results are better.
Yep, you'll do it. Yep.
That's why in some field we need regulations.
True.
For example, in the instant lending industry, you have an algorithm deciding if you can accede to a loan or not. Okay. But you cannot discriminate among people just because on average you're right and your profits are more, because you are ruining people's lives.
Yeah.
The bank right now cannot discriminate.
No. Yeah.
why an algorithm should be able to do that just because it's an algorithm.
Correct.
So I don't think, I'm pretty sure they don't think about the implications. They're only focused on the results. I understand that. But reasoning like this in this field, it's dangerous.
Yes.
Because we are just at the beginning. Now
Correct.
the AI, it's not powerful.
No.
And it's gonna grow.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So we need to define a culture about this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise we will face several problems. And if you cut off a wide part of the population from the social life because of several reasons, because you don't need them anymore, because historically they were performing poor on some tasks, and you rely on this data to decide if they are going to perform well or poor. Like, for example, the algorithm used during the head hunting, you cannot approach the problem in this way. You need to fully understand it. I mean, they're trying to regulate, for example, in the banking industry, at least here in Italy, I'm pretty sure you need to use explicable models.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
You cannot use black box models because you cannot explain the reason why you took a choice.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So, for example, I cooperated with some banks here in Italy, and they were rejecting every proposal about using a neural network because it's a black box. So they wanted, for example, a decision tree.
Right.
Which is less powerful, but it was explicable. And they need this from the regulatory point of view. And I think this is the right choice, even if it performs worse than another model. Right. Sometimes you need to follow these rules. The other, I've faced also a lot of, how can I say, it's not fear, but that the people didn't trust enough the models because they were better. So, for example, in the financial world, where you have to invest, if they cannot understand why the network says buy or sell, for example, they don't want to use it. Yeah. Because it scares them. Yes. Because I need to know why, otherwise I cannot say, no, don't do this, it's a wrong thought and something like that. But this is, I think it's different. There are several sectors which needs to be regulated, others that right now don't need, but actually the biggest problem is in the data, which are biased, because our society is biased and we have data that reflects our society. And several people in Google and this topic focusing on the biased data, which were perpetrating discrimination on already discriminated people. Right. So we need to be careful. But if we use it right, I think it can be one of the most powerful tools we ever invented.
True. Right. Good. Really like your opinion on that and how AI regulation is more important in several fields, and it's okay not to have in some for now. That's great. Although I'm a firm believer of AI and, I have absolutely no qualms against AI. It's just that, sometimes I just think about it and wanted to ask you, can it be stopped now? Is it possible to stop it? Let's say, for example, tomorrow all humans, 8 billion of the planet decide to stop AI because don't know, somebody from the future told us that it's not good to go for it. I have seen it. I'm coming from future because I have time traveled. Okay. And he says AI will destroy all of us. Is it possible to stop it now? Because it looks like it is in our DNA now, and the governments, the local companies, even the most reputed companies in the world are now, like Google and others, are into it. So is it possible to stop it now? And then I will ask you further question on top of that.
Okay, well, if everybody all over the world decided today to stop AI, yeah, of course we're going to stop AI because it doesn't build itself right now.
Yes.
So from that point of view, yeah, AI, of course, it's not going to be self-sustained right now. From the other side, I think that without this majority, with this entirety of people deciding to do that, it cannot be stopped because it improves several areas.
Right.
And there is no reason to stop implementing that. There is no practical reason it's not just the economical point of view. In the regular business, it's the economical point of view. For example, in healthcare,
right,
it's curing more people with less resources.
Yes.
It's still balanced in the end, but it's not just the economic one, especially here in Europe, because I was really interested in this field and I was reading a lot of research, but they were mainly made in the United States, and there's a completely different approach on the healthcare right there, down there. Of course, so the economic part was still the most important.
Yes, of course. Yes.
But however, I think we don't even need right now to stop it. It will become something to think about when AI will be able to decide by itself and to act.
Right.
When we will have something like the AGI, but right now you have a lot of very narrow specific models helping you doing that. So why using something different?
Correct.
However, you can always go back. Of course, the wide implementation of AI in the industry will take down a lot of jobs.
Right. Yes. But then it will create more as well, right? Because
I don't know.
No? Okay.
I actually don't know. I don't think it will create more than it will replace.
That's a great topic.
Time.
That's a great topic. Talk about it. What do you think about it?
Yeah, well, I think that, even in the industrial revolutions, there were people thinking that the innovation was going to take down their jobs, but we were talking about creating machines and to produce more stuff, and then people had to manage the life of the product after the production till the end. There was no decision making, and the automation right now it's only on completely fixed tasks. AI is able to manage the variability. If there's no variability, there's no need of AI.
Right.
Never in any field. However, right now you can manage variability, which is the decision making process, which has always distinguished us from the machines.
Of course, yes.
So, for example, imagine the autonomous driving system is perfect starting from today.
Self-driving cars, you mean, right? Yeah.
Self-driving cars, train, bus, trucks, everything, planes, boat, everything. Starting from tomorrow, none of this job will be available anymore.
Yes.
None of them.
Yes.
And how these people can help the machine to drive? No way.
So I think,
and this is just.
Sorry, I think are you trying to get on to the point that these people will lose jobs, and then these industries will not be able to create more jobs as it had during the Industrial Revolution, cars being manufactured, so supply chain and everything needed jobs.
Yeah, this is my opinion.
Okay.
Think of all the logistic industry, the delivery industry, the autonomous driving. Think about just the call center.
Sure.
If you have a perfect virtual assistant, even if it's not perfect, because also the operators are not perfect.
Right.
Just more complex than now, and I think we will have it in 5 years. There's no need to have call centers anymore.
No. Yeah.
And there's no way that we can upskill all of these workers to be employed in the AI sector. Because the AI will definitely create jobs in all the pipeline related to data, electricity, because we will need more electricity. But it's going to cancel a lot of them, to replace them. And this is my opinion, but it was also the opinion of Stephen Hawking and also Elon Musk. They proposed that they said that the only way to cope with this is to develop a UBI, Universal Basic Income.
I was getting
to redistribute. Yeah, that's the only way, because otherwise you will have a very large amount of people
unemployed,
out of the work, unemployed, or it's not
exactly
slave. It's a bad word, but most of them will be something like a slave. Have you seen? Because on this topic, the movies usually, even if it's sci-fi, they're correct. You've seen Elysium.
Elysium.
they're
Yes, I've seen it.
yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
yep,
I
yep.
mean, if you have the machines doing all the important things that
Correct.
the only thing that remains to people not able to work in that field or in high level fields is
Right.
to do whatever the machines cannot. And usually it's not a good job. It's not a good life.
No.
So
Yeah.
if we don't take the added value produced by the machine and gives it to the people to live a proper life, a happy life, there will be a very big problem.
Right. And Finland actually tried that. Sorry to interrupt you. I think Finland already tried that last year with the UBI.
Yeah, they tried it. It was not working.
That didn't work. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I know, but there is still job right now.
Yep.
I mean, when there will not be between UBI and nothing,
Yep.
and people starving, I mean,
Then you have
to do stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. Also, because if we are at that level, we don't even people won't even be able to fight back. That's because right. There will be AI defense.
Yeah, it's more
and
solid machine.
Yeah, and you can deploy them wherever they're not dying. So there is no way to get out of that.
I mean, Elysium was a bit, I shouldn't say scary, but an eye-opening movie, because imagine AI soldiers or robots controlling humans.
Yeah.
And so I just hope that it doesn't happen.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
But have you seen the Boston Dynamic robots?
Sorry? Yeah. Boston Dynamic.
The
way he flips, the way
they're dancing. Yeah.
They're dancing. Yeah. Oh, wow.
It improved just a little bit in 3 years.
Yep.
And imagine what it can do, I don't know,
in
10 years.
Or 10 years, yep. So I also actually follow this great scientist called Michio Kaku, theoretical physicist, I think string theory physicist, and he was
I know him.
He was a colleague of Stephen Hawking as well. And in some of his talks, he readily say that, right now the brain of an AI is more or less like a dog. It can think, but it can only think a little bit, not so much dynamic and not so much that a human can do. And he says that in about 50 years, I think, or 80 years, the AI will become as strong as a monkey. And that's where it's going to become dangerous, because a monkey is still very intelligent and understands how to manipulate things. And I really like his analogy where he says a dog thinks man is a big dog. So as per I mean, probably AI as well, it doesn't have consciousness for sure, because it's a machine.
No.
But what if it thinks these biological creatures who created me, are like my god or the big dogs, and I have to be in control. Fascinating stuff. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, I think it needs consciousness also to do that. But I mean, the difference between AI and the animals is that we have to enable AI to act, and we go back to the start of the talk, because it can think, but then you have to act on the world.
Yes.
If you're just a brain, you can't do anything. If you can control anything, you cannot.
Can I? Because we talked about consciousness. I mean, we could have done another podcast for it, but just just briefly, do you think we can ever replicate consciousness? Because the human consciousness or consciousness in general is not yet understood even by the top scientists. So do you think artificial intelligence or robots can ever get consciousness like humans?
Well, I think we will be able to emulate something similar to that, but I'm not sure we will be able to replicate consciousness.
Yeah.
Even because, I mean, what's consciousness?
Exactly. That's one of the most important points.
Yeah. They've been talking for 3,000 years about
so much long
2,000 years about that, and they were very clever, and haven't been able to reach the point.
Correct. Because Marco, I mean, imagine we have discovered everything in life, and we are still discovering. We are going to millions of kilometers away to find out new galaxies and all, but we still don't know, how does nature put consciousness in us? I mean, does plant have consciousness because they're still alive till the time they're cut and they're not dead? They're growing or they're doing a function, but why they don't have a consciousness while all mammals and every living being has consciousness. So that's such an amazing topic.
Yeah, but I'm an engineer. I cannot answer to you.
But no, great point. Let's go to the next one then. It's been talked about a lot. Elon Musk talks about it a lot as well. Are we living in a simulation? As an AI researcher, what do you think? Is it possible that somebody is controlling us, like in the Matrix movies? There's somebody who is controlling us and we are inside the simulation. And the hard problem of simulation is that we don't know that we are inside the simulation. What do you think?
Well, I think there can be an infinitesimal probability of that. We cannot know if we are in or not. Mm-hmm. If we are, it's a very, very complex simulation.
Right.
It's a very, very complex.
Just imagine.
I don't think we are in a simulation, and I think that without Matrix, nobody would have thought of that. However, it's fascinating, but it's too much. I mean, it seems more probable to me that we are an experiment. But
you think it? There is one more thing that I wanted to share.
No, I don't think we are. It's more probable. Okay. It's more probable.
You don't think like that, but it could be possible. Are you saying?
Yeah, it could be possible, definitely, because just imagine that there is another form of intelligent life.
Yeah.
We started with the technology innovation. It's 300 years.
Exactly, nothing.
Not more than that.
Absolutely nothing.
And we've been able to go to the moon. And at the beginning of the century, we were not able to fly. In 60 years, we were on the moon.
Right.
The universe is 8 billion years old, and it might be. It might be. It's much more probable than being a simulation.
Right.
However, it's still very improbable.
Right.
But these are the mystery of universe. I definitely think that there are other forms of intelligent life all over the universe, but it's just statistics.
Exactly.
I mean, it's much more improbable that we are the only one.
Absolutely. Yeah.
However, I don't think they've been able to reach us, because for what we know, space travel. I mean, the light speed is it's the light speed, and everything is too much far away.
You hit the nail on the head. Absolutely.
But there's a possibility of that, and I think it's really fascinating. And I think also to the fact that we've been able to create life in a lab in how many years? In 50 years.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
It won't be very easy in the next 200 years to create a synthetic form of life and to make it develop.
Yes, and they're already doing it.
It won't be difficult.
Yeah,
of course.
And
so I don't.
Right. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I was thinking from the technological point of view, it's completely reasonable.
Right.
However, it's just a fascination. It's just because I watch too much History Channel at 2:00 in the morning. That's why I have these thoughts.
No, but the topic that you touched is really something very close to my heart as well. Is about space travel, which is it's like you're absolutely right. Imagine that there are so many intelligent civilizations living in different galaxies or different star systems, but they cannot reach to us, because otherwise they will defy the laws of physics, traveling more than the speed of light. And also the fact that when scientists have proved the galaxies are all moving apart from each other so fast, then how is it that they're going to come to our galaxy and be able to cross that barrier of speed of light to reach to us? So yeah, it looks really improbable, but what's probable is that there can be lots and lots of intelligent civilization in other parts of the world. Yeah, absolutely fantastic that you shared that. Yeah, great. So last and final question then, Marco. According to you, because we already talked about consciousness, what is the meaning of life? What is the purpose to our lives? Is it just get birth, eat, get young, and then get old and die, like 70, 80 years? So why?
This is the easy question, right? Okay. Well, obviously, I have no answer to that, But I want to quote my favorite comedian ever, Bill Hicks.
Yes.
And this is just a ride, and we have to enjoy it.
Ah, awesome. I really like it. Who said it? Bill who?
Bill Hicks.
Bill Hicks, yes. Yes. Okay. That's awesome. Really nice way to end it. I think I loved the way you explored some of the topics, and I think people who are listening to this podcast will definitely enrich their knowledge in this field. I would request you to come again, whenever your time permits, and we can talk about space and science and all. If that's also your area of interest.
Of course, it would be a pleasure for me.
Okay, awesome.
I hope people enjoyed our talk.
Yeah.
I had.
They have to enjoy. They have to enjoy. I mean, whenever you go to Spotify or other places, there are not too many AI podcasts. There are not too many people talking about it other than Lex Fridman, or sometimes Joe Rogan invites researchers or scientists. And yeah, there are maybe some more, but that's it. And so, yeah. So glad that you've shared it. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Vivek.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. Please support this podcast by liking, commenting, sharing it with your friends, and also subscribing to this channel. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.